So I have a question for Canadians, and this is all a result of mass immigration. There are 22 Punjabi MPs. By the way, for the record, I'm a Punjabi. There are 22 Punjabi MPs in Canada. Are they the only Indians? There are no Gujaratis who could be members of parliament, Southern Indians, other Western Indians. Like, we just had to choose just one kind of Indian. I thought Canada had a diversity fetish, so why not diversity in a subgroup too? Nobody wants to answer these questions is because there is a certain lot of extremist groups in Canada that use mass immigration, victimhood culture very well, and they mesh it all together, and then they create this mess, and the pieces of which are to be picked up by the immigrants themselves.
Alex Alavoie for Rebel News, and last Sunday, I traveled to Toronto to cover the first National Security Conference titled United Against Extremism, organized by TAFSIC and the Canada-India Foundation. I drove all the way from Montreal because at Rebel News, we believe in showing you the other side of the story. As expected, no mainstream media bothered to show up or inform the public about this important event. Throughout the day, I spoke with several panelists who shared crucial insights into rising threats within our borders. I'm bringing you an exclusive interview with Kushal Mehra, an Indian-born citizen living in Canada and host of the Karvaka podcast, where he discusses economics, politics, and pressing social issues. He has deep insight into how some Indian nationals are abusing Canada's immigration's loopholes and institutions, as well as the growing presence of Khalistani extremists. Let's hear what he has to say today.
But this is a very serious problem, and what we have done is we have diverted the anger on the one who's actually the victim of this process. It's not like they came here swimming. You can't swim to Canada from India if you look at the map. It's kind of hard. You have to fly in.
Today I want to address the problem of mass migration and the impact that we are seeing in Canada. And I want to see your perspective on the damages that mass migration have bring to Canada.
Well, the damages on both sides. It's as far as mass immigration to Canada is concerned, I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding of what immigration is as a concept in Canada. They've mixed it with human rights. Immigration is not a right. Immigration is a privilege. Whether you immigrate into Canada, whether you immigrate out of Canada into another country, you're going to another place. You have to learn the habits of that place, and the place has the right to have a quota. The problem that has happened is that we have this victimhood epistemology across the world now, and we are incentivizing all the wrong things. And when everybody is a victim, then it's not like if you come to me and you say you're victimized, like, what am I going to say? I don't care. No, I'm not going to say I don't care. I'm going to try to find a way to accommodate you. And this cultural zeitgeist in the Western world has completely changed. Like, my story is so unique. I came to Canada in 2001 too. I went back. Imagine a student going back. Does that happen anymore? Mm-hmm. I went back to Mumbai. I studied there. I was a very successful entrepreneur. I never took immigration to Canada. My wife was born and raised Canadian. I got married to her. The world comes here. I took her to India. And then due to a personal family tragedy, it's 3-4 years ago, we decided to move back over here. And I don't recognize Canada anymore. The Canada I used to study at, in 2001 and 2 at York University is clearly not the country. And what I see over here is that this victimhood culture is being used by certain groups very well. I think they have very good lawyers, I have to say. They read the law better than an average Canadian does, and they are weaponizing it, and they're using it to get people who are not needed in this society. Let's say Canada needs plumbers, electricians. We have a shortage of tradesmen in Canada, but we don't get them. All we get is like a bunch of people who can at best be Uber drivers or Uber Eats or just work as a cashier somewhere. That's not the kind of skill Canada needs right now.
We don't have tradesmen. We have too many Uber drivers. I have nothing against Uber drivers. Even I would become one if the opportunity comes. This is not a jibe at that, but I'm trying to raise the point that what we need, we don't get. What we get, we don't need.
You cannot sustain this, and it actually backfires on the immigrant, because then people take their anger out on the immigrant as if, the immigrant is sitting in India or anywhere in the world and they have so much power that they can convince the entire Canadian system sitting in India. They are that powerful, right? Right? They sit there, they call the Canadian Prime Minister apparently and tell them, you let me in. It's being weaponized by Canadian politicians because somewhere in our culture we have put group identity over individual identity. I don't care what the color of your skin is, what your religion is. I could be from India and I have more things in common with some people in Canada than my own country. So when the locus of a society goes from individual identity to group identity, these immigration scams happen.
There's a term in India, we call it Goi Media, as in people who are in the lab of the establishment. And they use that word, Goi Media, in the foreign interference report, FYI.
There's a loophole. And the refugee loophole has been exploited, the LMIA system has been exploited, the student visa program has been exploited. You had 80 diploma mills just in Brampton, Ontario. You cannot have that many diploma colleges. And I personally went in my investigation, I used to go around. We have, I've seen small colleges in India. They're smaller than India. You cannot be smaller than India. You have better facilities here. And these are the scams that are happening right now. And I say this with full responsibility. They are actively aided and abetted by Canadian members of parliament, not by immigration agents. By immigration agents who work in cahoots with Canadian members of parliament, who I'm not going to name, but everybody knows who they are.
Because this is a thing, how come knowing about Roxham Road and all the bad effects that was coming up, Justin Trudeau was brief on this. It was brief also on the Mexican national by lifting the visa that would bring a lot of people, bad actor, cartel. He did it anyway. And it also lift the visa requirement during a part of time. He knew what will happen. How come knowing all this, they did it anyway?
I mean, Occam's razor says sometimes the most obvious answer is the most realistic one. The obvious answer is they were corrupt. They were paid off.
My parents had to go through a giant amount of paperwork. This is a myth that there is no paperwork. The paperwork is for the people who have a conscience. The problem is that the ones who know they don't have a conscience, they know what to do and how to circumvent the system. The problem is you have to stop the circumventing of the system. And that is aided and abetted, unfortunately, by Canadian members of parliament. So what happens is the Canadian members of parliament, your ire should be at the parliamentarian, you take it out of the immigrant. That's the problem.
If you go around in Indian neighborhoods and you ask anyone about mass immigration or immigration, they'd be like, just stop. And these are the same people who are getting all this hatred.
They can't.
They don't want it. Have people seen the polling data? Has anybody gone and polled the Indians and asked them about the rate of immigration they want from India? And forget that. Canada has a diversity fetish. So I have a question for Canadians, and this is all a result of mass immigration. There are 22 Punjabi MPs. By the way, for the record, I'm a Punjabi. There are 22 Punjabi MPs in Canada. Are they the only Indians? There are no Gujaratis who could be members of parliament, Southern Indians, other Western Indians. Like, we just had to choose just one kind of Indian. I thought Canada had a diversity fetish, so why not diversity in a subgroup too? Nobody wants to answer these questions is because there is a certain lot of extremist groups in Canada that use mass immigration, victimhood culture very well, and they mesh it all together, and then they create this mess. and the pieces of which are to be picked up by the immigrants themselves. Girls are being sexually trafficked in Canada. We have now barely touched the base. I think the Toronto Star also spoke about it after people like me were howling and screaming for years. After me helping young girls from India who are sexually exploited over here. It, nobody talks about it.
The most of the immigration that happens over here, please remember this, it is a gateway to the United States of America. So not only are people migrating for Canada, most of them are actually migrating for Canada to go to America. I don't want to break anyone's heart over here, but we're not that special. They know they can game the system in Canada far more effectively than America, and they come over here and then they go to America from Canada. So that's something we should know.
I know people think just randomly saying for 20 years we're not going to let people in is going to solve anything. No, it's not going to solve anything. What we need to do is rationalize it. We need to start. Look, a lot of these people who have come here, whatever way they are, they're not all of them are not going to go back. So the Canadian system could not track down 6,000 illegal immigrants. You think they're going to track down 1 million? You just don't have the wherewithal. So the only rational way, I'm not saying it's justified or it's good. I'm saying we can only deal the hand that has been dealt with the hand that has been dealt to us. I think we need to find a way of reskilling these people, and diploma mills are not the right way of doing it. Whosoever can be sent back should be sent back.
The economic system over here is messed up. You cannot have an economy where 25% of your population is hired by the government, 25% of your economy is real estate. That's not a real economy. That sounds a lot like Pakistan.
My understanding of the Canadian system is the Conservatives wait for the Liberals to okay it. So notice this, before the election, nobody was using the K word of Canada, Khalistan. Suddenly, Mark Carney made it okay by starting to talk to India. And then suddenly, the CSIS report comes and CSIS mentions Khalistan. And lo and behold, Conservative MPs are using the K word now. Who okayed it? Who made it? Fine to discuss it. So I don't think the solution is Mark Carney gets replaced by a Conservative, because you can literally track down speeches of Conservative politicians in this country, and their version of immigration or immigration reform is not that different from the others. The only solution is if Canadians start writing to their individual members of parliament.
Really important conference like that, and no mainstream media showed up, but we are here to show you the other side of the story. So if you appreciate our work and you want to support us, please go over rebelfieldreports.com, chip in whatever you want, couple of bucks to help us to continue to show you the other side of the story, because I drove from Montreal to Toronto to show you. Thanks.